I'm Kareena Maxwell, the producer and the host of The Relevancy Show. As you can see right here, I actually typed it out because we're just beginning. And this show is about what's relevant and what's going on in the world. And I am so excited to be here today. And right next to me is my bud homie, Loretta Beavis, and she's going to introduce herself.
I'm Loretta Beavis.
And?
Grew up in California, living in Arizona, making new friends, making big decisions on my own, and wanting to share with some people who think that they just can't get there. They can.
Well, the thing, Loretta is also a psychologist, and she's working on her second degree in education, master's.
Master of Arts in Special Education and Elementary Education in birth to pre-K, so cradle to third grade.
Quite a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that behind the camera is Brenda Inman, and here we are, three women who have all met here in Concho, Arizona, this little bitty tiny town in Apache County that people go, what? Yeah, Concho, C-O-N-C-H-O. But Concho is a microcosm of the rest of the world, which brings me to our subject today, which is domestic violence. I would venture to say that everybody walking around on the planet has been subjected to some sort of violence. So we don't just have internal domestic violence, but we also have street. We have road rage today. We have bullying at school. Is that domestic violence?
Yeah.
That's all domestic violence.
Because the system in the school, they'll say, they call it a family, your school family, and that's the way you're teaching the kids the ethics of living with each other is you treat it like a family, and that's where abuse and violence takes place.
So it gets substituted.
Yeah.
The roles get substituted. Teacher becomes mommy.
It correlates. It's right alongside.
Okay. So we know that there are types of domestic violence, and we know that there's data. And what happens in families with domestic violence and violent situations is people start to keep secrets. And secrets are really damaging. Have all of you both of you been exposed to domestic violence?
Yes.
Brenda and Loretta. Are we going to talk about, are we going to share ourselves at all?
Sure.
If we want to? Yeah, I experienced my father beating up my mother, but I was never hit. But that scare stuff, I realized, it took me over 60 years to realize that I had post-traumatic stress. Because I couldn't listen to a door closing without going like this, because every time a door closed, he'd come in drunk.
Yeah.
And then I knew the inevitable.
It's a trigger.
It's a trigger.
Trigger, an antecedent. And your brain has a pattern. It records everything like library cards, you know?
Yeah.
And then every time it sees that checkout date, you're afraid. You're not thinking of what's going to happen next. You don't have control over it because our thoughts process so fast as a heartbeat. And you know that there's the consciousness and the subconsciousness.
Absolutely.
And unconscious, when you just don't want to deal with it, and you go to bed and you're so depressed. But your subconscious reacts faster before you have an opportunity to think about it. And that's why the PTSD framework applies not just to war, but to domestic violence or any kind of significant emotional event. That's what it was. It was so significant. Your brain cataloged it. And it watches. You have a wariness and an anxiety about looking for when it's going to happen again because you had to do something to protect yourself.
And then when it happens again, it's like freeze inside.
You may be a flight person. You may be a freeze person. You may be a fight person. We have an acquaintance who she'll put her fists up when she's pushed too far. First time I got pushed too far and I slapped somebody, he hit me back harder, and the message came to me is this guy's stronger than I am, and he wants it to escalate, and it's going to escalate, so I froze. I don't do that anymore. Sometimes it was flight, but definitely freeze because I don't want an escalation. Because for many of us, we had a job, we had children, we had friends. You didn't want to show bruises, you didn't want to lose your job. You were trying to just hold on until things got better.
But that's the shame factor.
Absolutely. Undeserved guilt and shame.
So ashamed. And we've all three of us here have worked in the school, Concho Elementary School, and we've talked about that. We can talk about that. Not here, certainly, but we can pick up and plug in on kids when they show up and they're dirty, they're not dressed appropriately for the weather.
They're hungry.
They're physically starving. for food, for nutrition, and they're starving for this. Thank you, Brenda. Brenda just did it just as I was thinking of it. It's the physical, it's the emotional, and it's the psychological.
Yeah.
And when you get all of them together, how does a kid feel? They feel
Let down.
worthless?
They start developing
Hopeless?
a strategy for how to cope with life, and many of them start to hate themselves. It's called self-reproach.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the people that were born naturally optimistic, call them orchids. And then you got, correct myself, the naturally optimistic are dandelions. It's a weed in your yard. You go stomp it out, you spray it with something, and it comes right back. It's like, well, wasn't that bad? Is that all you got? You see kids like that. You send them to the principal's office. They're like, oh, I don't have to do classwork now. So they don't
You
mind.
see the good side.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
But the other side is the negative self-image, and they learn to not be optimistic, and pretty soon it goes way out here to where they hate themselves. And you see that in adults, too.
Well, they also disconnect because they overeat. They become
There's overeaters.
They become
because it
sexualized.
distracts you, yeah.
Because the sexualized
Yeah.
self feels good, they feel wanted, they feel desired, and so they act out sexually, and they also start using drugs.
Yeah.
Hey, it feels
Some
good.
kind of
Why not?
self-medication to take their minds off the pain that
Yeah.
nobody cares about me, I'm worthless. And it's all my fault. It's never their fault. Even if you're adult.
That's the
never your
first
fault.
thing you said to me when we started talking about doing a segment on domestic violence,
Mhm.
and you said number one is
Yep, it's not your fault.
it's not your fault. And that's a big one. Well, children, to go back to them, they always feel like they're to blame. They do. It's my fault. I'm here.
How could they possibly understand that they had done something that it was their fault? They're children. They don't have the cognitive development yet. They're still playing peekaboo, like she's not there really. They don't understand that she's not there. And she does this.
Peekaboo.
Oh, there you are. And now she's not there, but she's really just on the other side. That's how immature they are
Yeah.
until they get into their mid-teens, adolescence.
So developmentally, they're interrupted, they're delayed, because they're still playing peekaboo, but yet they're forced into an adult world.
Well, that's all developmentally, that's
Yeah.
where their brain is, and that's where it's supposed to be. And they're counting on somebody that they can trust so that they can continue to grow until they get to the point like, really, the world is not worried about what color my socks are today, whether my hair is perfect. They're able to say, I like myself the way I am.
Mhm.
But they're not there yet. The brain just has not grown yet.
And what about some of the data we have specifically
Oh my
around here?
gosh.
Do you have anything on that?
You can go to any of our states, and you can also go to the federal government, look up the Department of Justice for that state, and they all do reports on statistics. They're mostly interested in murder, homicides by an intimate partner. So this one is on San Bernardino County, which is the
So
biggest
if
county
you
in
get
California.
pushed,
Oh, yeah.
they don't care about
So
that.
the categories.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, we'll do the categories. This is a good example. This was for domestic violence-related calls for assistance in 2010. The categories: no weapon involved or reported, weapons involved, and then the types of weapons: firearm, cutting or a knife, other dangerous weapon, which they didn't say what it was, and the last one, which is I think one of the reasons why people don't speak up after a while, is called personal weapon. So what's a personal weapon? It's hands, feet, etc.
So what do we do going forward? How do we protect ourselves? How do we encourage young girls, young boys, girls, the LGBTQ, whatever
Everybody.
community,
Everybody.
everybody's at risk.
Have a safe life is a right for everybody.
Yes, and how do we go forward? It's so complex.
You have to learn to accept help. There's help out there, and they reach out all the time. And you got to try it because it's better than what you're experiencing today. And you learn with small decisions. And tomorrow, you've got tomorrows, a lifetime of tomorrows. It's
Yeah.
going to get better.
Yeah.
She's a media company. Brenda, You blow me away with your knowledge about
Oh, gosh.
livestock and how people could do better. And you've got this really, both of you are so artistic. You do candle making, you do quilting.
Yeah.
You're a writer, you're journalism. I can't put your books down. I start reading and I'm doing this, you know. I want more. I'm waiting. Do you have any more? For me, it was education, and I'm interested in behavior. Like, why did all these things happen to me? So I'm going down the road of helping these children we were talking about. That it can get better. If it's bad, put that bad thing on trial. Put it on trial and say, show me the facts that makes all this nasty stuff about me true. And if you start putting listing those facts, you'll find out they're not facts at all. So it's not true. So it can't be my fault. You just put it on trial. You have to change the way you conceptualize who's at fault or why it's my fault, or stop blaming yourself.
And that takes work.
It takes practice.
Yeah, practice.
It's a new habit, and it takes
Yeah,
practice.
you have to keep saying it to yourself and looking at it.
And occasionally, our brains, the way they're finding out through research now, once you develop a habit, okay, you have a bunch of neurons in your brain, so when you're learning, trial and error, you have all these separate neurons that are putting in energy to go down the little rat maze and hang a left because there's chocolate down there. Don't go to the right because there's nothing down there. So over time, the way the brain works is these neurons, just like batteries, all hook up, and it's strong. And they run down that maze and they go to the left. Well, you can train a new habit to go down the maze and go to the right, and there's ice cream. But every once in a while, there's a deliberation circuit in the brain that's only been discovered in the last 10 years. Gets to the end of the maze and goes, I feel like chocolate today. Goes to the left. Whether the chocolate's there or not, just go down the chocolate aisle. So again, you can't beat yourself up. It's how your brain has trained itself. It's just incredible. So
Right.
you go on a diet and you fall off your diet, it's your brain's fault. Okay, next, but tomorrow's going to be better. So you just
It's not advertising.
Yeah.
It's not shopping. It's this up here. I want to mention this is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. For those of you who are watching,
Yeah.
it ends in safe.
Make the call.
Make the call. Thank you.
And even if you fall back, because I left home more than once, and I had to go back, you can do it again, because they always answer. They always answer.
I tried. My mother, I'm just going to say this in closing. My mother, as she was developing dementia, she befriended a younger man about 40 years younger than she is, and he would hurt her. He was a Cuban guy. Not that Cuban men do that. Men do that, and women also.
Yeah.
But she was getting hurt, and I had to get her away from him fast. So it's all over the place. And they'll lie and they'll pretend, oh, he's my boyfriend. Ma, he's not your boyfriend. So, all right, I am Kareena Maxwell. This is Loretta Beavis. Behind the camera, we have Brenda Inman. And this is the Relevancy Show. And we're going to be back soon with another subject. I just don't know when, but it'll be real soon. Thank you.
And you'll love it.
Bye for now.